This is a message that I received from someone more than a year ago, but I had not seen it because I was unaware, I was unaware of this account, in fact, and didn't know that anybody would be sending a message through it. So anyways, it reads, from Elliot Selkirk. Good afternoon. I have really enjoyed your videos and found them very thoughtful and intuitive. I was always something of a skeptical type, but didn't really break into full-on suspicion until realizing about 9/11 a couple of years ago, and later discovered your discussion of the AIDS controversy slash deception. In some of your more recent videos, you've talked a lot about YouTube and its deliberate attempts to make stupid content slash comments more visible, while either shrouding or totally deleting more sensible content. One thing I've noticed lately is the proliferation of flat earth content. Shortly after finding out about 9/11, I also discovered the moon landing to be fraudulent, which you haven't made any videos about, but I'm sure you're aware of. Based on this fact alone, the prospect of a flat earth conspiracy seems to be a lot more possible, but especially with something as deeply ingrained in my worldview as a round earth, and the recognition that YouTube is by and large a cesspool, I am hesitant to swallow anything so easily. I'm curious what your perspective is on space exploration slash NASA, the recent popularity of flat earth theory, and whether many of its proponents on YouTube are good faith researchers, or whether it is more of a disinformation campaign. I am wary of the fact that something like the flat earth could be used to make more reasonable and actual conspiracies such as 9/11 seem crazy, since those who espouse them have taken to the idea of flat earth. Likewise, I would be open to the idea that the earth is flat, since there are a great many other things that have proven to be total deliberate lies. But it will take a lot more than some YouTube videos to convince me of it. Your channel, though small, is the only one I feel I can trust, to be completely honest, without any ulterior motives. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts, if you wouldn't mind sharing them. But if you feel like making a video about it too, I'm sure your viewers would be interested. Keep up the good content, and have a good day. Thank you, Elliot. I did respond. Hi, Elliot. Sorry I took so long. Since taking a bit of a long break from YouTube, I completely forgot about some other things, this email address included, and so have not checked up on them. Firstly, no, the earth is not flat. Yes, NASA was founded by a Satanist fraud whose establishment went on to brainwash the public with lies, like the moon landing. But that does not mean the earth is flat. Indeed, certain things like the earth's layered internal structure are complete guesswork and are likely to be complete rubbish, since no one knows how the earth really looks inside, and the idea of fossil fuels is as well a hoax perpetrated by the Rockefellers. But the shape of the earth is not something which can unreasonably be called round. Merely observe the moon, the sun, and the other planets we have seen, or been able to see, during solar eclipses, for example. What reason is there for the earth to be flat? There is none. What is completely unreasonable is to claim the earth is flat. There is no proof of this, and the flat earthers cannot provide it. Flat earthers are a misled bunch of fanatics who are bored with life and seek to find mystery in places where there is none. They have been lied to by a bunch of times. They have been lied to a bunch of times and have sadly fooled themselves into thinking everything is one big lie being orchestrated by the same group of people. That is not so. Secondly, I am glad you appreciate my videos. In general, the internet has become a breeding ground for stupidity. Sensible discussion, therefore, has become quite non-existent. It has become so bad I hardly ever read any comments anywhere online anymore. It sucks. That and a few other things like YouTube's BS treatment of content creators disincentivize online interactivity. I have had many things to sort out and arrange also, so I had to stay away from the online world for a while. But maybe I'll start making videos more often. Take care, Elliot. Okay, so yes, that's the message. That was my response. Oh yeah, and that crackle that you might hear every once in a while in the background is my chair. It's old and creaks terribly loudly. Anyways. Whew, about this flat earth nonsense. One of the reasons that there's been so much nonsense on the internet, especially for the last 7 years or so, is because of what YouTube did. And it's not just YouTube, it's not just Google that did this, it's Facebook that soon followed suit. You go to YouTube and type any comment. If it's sensible, as I said, I explained this in a video before, if it's sensible, you won't get any responses because most people agree, so that kind of comment is going to fall to the bottom in terms of hierarchical importance. You see, the nonsense, the stuff that has a lot of people responding to it because it has enraged so many people who are sensible, is the stuff that floats to the top. Facebook has done the exact same thing to their comment section, and lately, especially, let's say the past 2 years, it's gotten really, really, really bad. I mean, you can't go to something like a MotoGP fan page or a Formula One fan page and look at the comments without seeing all kinds of nonsense, irrational nonsense. It's like, what is this? You know, people just saying silly things. And the reason is this, actually, it's very simple. The reason that there's so much nonsense online is not just because of, you know, what Google has done and has made people bold, because it has made these crazy people feel important. They've realized, wait, I express myself and people respond to it, my views are being promoted, so they become confident and, you know, they comment in other places. That's why you can't have any sensible discussions. You cannot actually have a logical debate with someone online, because whatever it is that you're saying will fall on deaf ears. You know, at best they will fall on the ears of a fool who won't do anything with that information but ignore it completely and spew whatever nonsense they were going to spew anyways, regardless of that information. You see, so the reason we have this is because, remember this, if let's say, let's just say 5%, if 5% of the world is mentally ill, remember that a lot of people have access to the internet, if only 5% of those people are mentally ill, that's a hell of a lot of people. There are a lot of people on the internet who really shouldn't be there. They have to be in psychiatric hospitals, or they need some kind of help. There are a lot of people in the world who need that help, but we don't really run into them all that much because the ratio of sensible people to non-sensible people is so much higher, you know, in the real world. Online, that's, you know, that's where most of the sick people are. They stay at home and spend time on the internet, you see. So let me give you this example. If, let's say, 400 million people, now that's just way too little. Let's be realistic and say 1 billion, okay? Let's say 1 billion people are online, okay? If just 5% of those people are mentally ill, that's 50 million people with mental illness online. If just 5% of that 1 billion, and I think it's more than that. I think, let's be realistic and multiply that by 3. I think we have 3 billion people online at least. 5% of that is 150 million people, sick people on the internet. Okay, 150 million people who don't have the ability to think clearly, to think properly, to problem solve, and therefore to live life in a manner which conforms to a standard set by those who are rational and who think clearly, are roaming the internet. And these are the kinds of people more inclined to express themselves, because they're, you know, these kinds of people usually are internally disturbed, so they have to you know, air their grievances or post nonsense, type nonsense. Some of these people derive pleasure from participating in discussion just because they're participating in discussion, even though their participation is detrimental to the purpose of the conversation. So these kinds of people you will find in every comment section, and they are the only ones you'll find in every comment section. Not just because they're the ones who are inclined to communicate, but because they are the ones who are being promoted. So you go online, you can't have any, you just can't have rational discourse, man. It sucks. Which is why I don't spend any time on the internet. I mean, I watch videos every now and then, but comments, oh boy, I might post one, but I don't read them. I don't read them because, man, I mean, such a thing would be a detriment to my own mental health, you know, reading some of the nonsense that comes out of here. So that's pretty much it. That's why there's so much nonsense online. That's why it's so difficult to find people who think properly, because I don't know if you've realized this, but things seem to be flipped, completely turned upside down. When you go online, certainly it has been my experience, that online there seems to be a mass or a movement of people that have a certain opinion, a certain irrational, nonsensical opinion. But then you step outside and you realize that's not what people think. That, the views that you are seeing online aren't the views that are being shared by people in the real world. It's almost as if the online world is the exact opposite of the real world. And at the time I really started to get the time I really started to see all this is when I started getting involved in automotive simulation. My background is engineering, and I don't just like engineering. Of course, I like to participate in the things that are a product of engineering, cars, for example. So I got into driving simulation. So driving simulators, things like Project Cars, rFactor 2, those kinds of things. And the opinion of everybody who is sensible in the real world, including myself, is that the only real driving simulation, genuine driving simulator, which as its focus is empirical scientific data. Project Cars 2 is the only driving sim which is so complex in its nature that the cars have to be constructed accurately in terms of the metrics which constitute them realistically. For example, engine simulation in Project Cars 2 is so all-encompassing that the engine takes into account the density of the air, right, which of course varies according to temperature, humidity, the volumetric constituency of the combustive elements of the air is taken into account. The kind of performance that the engine will produce at latitude X, for example, is far greater than would be at latitude X minus 50 meters, for example, simply because of all the things that change. And that, of course, that's just the performance aspect of the engine. Then you've got the aerodynamic aspect. Okay, there's a tool for Project Cars 2 called PC2 Tuner. PC2 Tuner is without a doubt the most sophisticated tuning tool for any driving sim. Why? Because it can only exist for the Project Cars 2 platform. It can't exist for iRacing. It can't exist for Assetto Corsa. It can't exist for rFactor 2, because those driving games are simply not sophisticated enough for a tool like this to leverage. They don't have the information for a tool like this to use to build. Remember, what this tool does is takes data to output real world results. Now, in order for that to apply for a driving simulator, the physics engine needs to be based on empirical scientific data. If in a purely theoretical computer simulation, increasing the ride height by X will have, the result of Y plus 24, for example, that is what you will have in Project Cars 2. Project Cars 2 will produce that because it is on that level of sophistication and detail. Now, the reason it's called PC2 Tuner is because it can only work with Project Cars 2. And the reason for that is the developers of this, of course, have nothing to do with Project Cars 2 financially or economically, but they needed a way to interact with the theoretical models that determine the vehicular dynamism of automotive interactivity. And the other driving sims, so-called driving sims, simply don't have the ability to output the information that this tool would need. And furthermore, they don't have the ability to compute that information to a realistic outcome. Project Cars 2 is the only driving simulator that can do that. If you punch X into a theoretical model, you will get the outcome realistically, observationally, empirically. If you do that with the other games, you're not going to get that. You're going to get nonsense. The car's not going to behave in a manner which is consistent with the theoretical model with the other games, because the physics engine is not able to do so. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because, as I was exploring these driving sims, of course, I looked online. I'd look online and perhaps see what other people were saying on the internet, but I found a bunch of highly ignorant fools, to be honest. I didn't find anyone speaking sense. And if you didn't know any better, if you were someone, maybe a child or someone who was interested in driving simulation, because maybe you didn't want to have to spend the kind of money that you would have to spend in the real world to rent a car and take it to the racetrack, or to risk your own car by taking it to a racetrack and stuff like that, you'd go online and look for information, see what other people are saying, and you'd be misled, because the first thing you'd see is a bunch of people who know nothing at all about cars saying iRacing is a driving simulation, and saying, worst of all, saying Project Cars is an arcade game and all this. What? People who have no idea what they're talking about. That's just an example of what I've been saying. the online world is flipped upside down. Go into the real world and talk to engineers and mechanics, and of course, all of them will tell you what is iRacing. It's just a game. It's just a silly game that people are playing, and unfortunately, these people have developed an affinity towards it, and so they go around fanboying for it. So that's pretty much what happens with things like iRacing, Assetto Corsa, and whatnot. There is also a driving simulator called Race Room. Race Room is pretty good. Not anywhere near as sophisticated as Project Cars 2, but it's pretty decent in terms of the driving feel and whatnot. Now, I just gave you one example of the kind of nonsense that you'll find, and of course you can verify this by looking online, Google the best driving simulator or whatever, and you'll find things that will mislead you, and you think, wait, what? And if you know anything about cars, you're going to try these games for yourself, and thankfully, you'll know that you're not going crazy. Because I thought, wait, am I going crazy? Because I'll go online and the world was just so different, and this is how it is in every genre of communication, with everything. You go on the internet and it's just nonsense. And there's a show I saw. It was a comedy show online, and some guy said, what the problem with the internet is? The problem with the internet is that a while ago, let's say 20 years ago, if there was a loser who fucked pigs, he would be isolated as a loser who fucks pigs, and he'd have no ability to encourage his behavior, certainly not by associating with other people. Now, however, that same loser can go online and search for, who else fucks pigs, and all of a sudden he'll be able to associate himself with other people who do the same things that he does, and he's part of a community. That's the problem with the internet nowadays. Somebody who fucked pigs at least knew he shouldn't be fucking pigs, and he was able, in some sense, to be helped. Now, hey, he can feel whatever the hell he does is normal because there are others like him. And when these people become emboldened and they go online and talk nonsense, I mean, it messes everything up for all of us, man. So yeah, this was a bit of a long video, I know, but hopefully it wasn't too long. All right, cheers.